Hello, everyone, and welcome to Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. Today, we are joined by a birth mother named Matalia. Matalia is going to share her experience of not knowing she was pregnant and choosing adoption for her child. So welcome, Matalia. Hi.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. So let's start from the beginning. When did you, in fact, know that you were pregnant?
June 28th of 2014.
You'll remember that day forever.
Yes, permanently in my head. Just never going away.
And how did you find out you were pregnant?
So I was going out with some friends and I have PCOS. So let's start with that for a little bit of more understanding. That morning I woke up and I just didn't feel quite right, but I normally have very hard menstrual cycles. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm just about to start my cycle and I got some cramps. So I headed out with my friends. We pull up to lunch and I'm like, I can't get out the car. And they were like, what do you mean you can't get out the car? I said, I literally I just can't move. I can't move. So they were really concerned and were like, we're going to take you to the hospital. Get to the hospital. I check into the emergency room. I'm going through all this stuff. I have a nurse come in. She's asking all your simple questions. When's the last time you had a period? And I'm like, got PCOS. So it's really fluctuating, but I did have one last month and everything was okay. And she was like, all right. So she sent me back for an ultrasound. A little scary because you're in the ER and you're kind of like an ultrasound. What do I need an ultrasound for? So I go back, I get an ultrasound, come back into my emergency room, and the nurse looks at me and goes, I didn't know if that was a tumor or a baby, but it looks like you're having a baby. You're in active labor right now.
Wow. And at that point, up until that point, so how old were you in 2014?
I was 20.
20. Had you ever been pregnant before?
No, I was never. I was actually told it would be very hard for me to get pregnant with the PCOS.
So here you are, 19, 20 years old. You're thinking you're having some stomach issues. You go to the hospital and you find out that you're pregnant and in active labor.
Yes. So luckily I didn't go by myself and I had a friend with me and I just looked at her. I started crying. I said, please call my mom. I can't even call her right now because I'm trying to ingest all these feelings. But I was like, please call her. I don't know what I'm doing right now. So she called and then she showed up to the hospital. And within maybe 5 hours or so being at the hospital, I gave birth. Yeah, it was almost one of those, if I didn't go when I went, I probably would have had him in a toilet situation because I didn't realize I was in labor. Nobody else around me realized that it was even a possibility for me to be in labor. It was kind of, scary, but I called my mom and she rushed right over and it gets emotional talking about it because it's kind of one of those weird things that just happen in life. Didn't have a lot of time to comprehend what I was really going through. I understood that I was having a baby. I wasn't understanding how I didn't know that I was having a baby at this point in time. I'm in labor. That's 9 to 10 months of you not knowing you're pregnant. I didn't throw up. I wasn't gaining any weight. I was in school full time. I was working at Chuck E. Cheese full time. Just started working at Target. So my life was just any normal 19, 20-year-old life. So yeah, I ended up giving birth later on that night.
And at what point, you obviously were rushed into this life-changing moment, but did you even have time to process okay, I'm pregnant, I'm in labor, a baby's about to come, what is going to be my plan? At what point did you start thinking about options and what this would look like for you?
Probably right before I gave birth to the first couple of hours after I gave birth type of deal. It wasn't strange, but I was at the hospital and because of my situation, they had me in a excluded room kind of away from everybody else. It was one of those things that it was I'm still young. I haven't lived my life yet. I didn't want to have a baby I wasn't ready for. I didn't spend all 9 months bonding with the baby. So it was kind of those things where, like, financially, you're still young. Yes, you have family and friends that would help you, but at the same time, like, I personally grew up with government assistance, and I didn't want to ever have that for my child. And I knew, part of me knew, bringing him home, I would have to rely on the government system or assistance, because I was only making so much at Chuck E. Cheese and Target that it was nowhere near enough to financially take care of a baby. But I just knew in my heart of hearts that I was not ready to quite be a parent yet. And the way that it all happened was kind of just like, you know, I tell everybody, if I had the 9 months to bond with the baby or know that I was pregnant with the baby, I think I would have kept him. It would have been totally different. But just in that moment, it was kind of like, you're not ready for this, but there's somebody who is ready for this, if that makes sense.
Totally. At what point did you start considering adoption? Like, were these options that were presented to you at the hospital? Did you meet with a hospital social worker? Did your mom suggest it? How did you become connected to adoption?
Me and my mom were talking about it just because we were just talking about options. Like, she was more than happy to, like, bring him home. We'll get him whatever he needs. And I was kind of just like, sounds good. But, like, that's a whole lifestyle change that I wasn't prepared for. It was fairly easy. We were just kind of like, here's our choices. You keep him, bring him home, or you put him up for adoption, or place him for adoption, I should say. And I knew, no matter everyone around me's opinion of bringing him home, I just knew that in my heart of hearts that I shouldn't bring him home. That there are people out there who are waiting for a child, who are wanting a child. And I was just like, not that I don't want him, but it was just a lot. It was a lot to understand and comprehend. And just, was I really, really ready for this? And I just knew in my hearts of hearts that I was not ready for it.
How did you hear about Adoptions from the Heart?
They were one of the companies that the social worker from the hospital had brought to us.
And when you made the connection to the agency social worker that worked on your case with you, describe what that was like. What type of support did you receive when the agency came out and met with you and started adoption planning?
They were really supportive. Mind you, it was kind of a last minute case. So, like, I feel like had it been like, something I did like maybe 6 months earlier, that, it wouldn't feel so like, oh my God, what are we doing? But the agency was very, very supportive. They were just like, what do you want? Like, what kind of parents are you looking for? And is it okay if they this, or, all those other questions. And I was just like, I just want somebody who's going to love him. And that's all I care about. I could care less of where in the world he is or who he's with, whatever. And they, came up with the profiles and sent over a couple different profiles for me to look at. And we went from there. But during those steps, they were like, hey, check out this YouTube video of this couple. And they would send it. And I thought the videos were great because the little pamphlets, they're cool, but like the videos give you real personality and stuff like that.
So some of our families struggle with the videos. It's hard to kind of envision yourself becoming this actor on video. Do you have any advice for folks who are struggling with that video part of the process? Because it sounds like it's something that was really helpful for you.
The photos can show a lot. The pamphlets, they're great. They give you a lot of information, but you really get to see the people through those videos. You get to kind of see, maybe if they have an accent, not that that matters, but you kind of get to just get those little aspects. And I think a little bit more personality pops out through those videos.
Sure. And then which family did you end up matching with?
They were right from Philadelphia, which is great because I was in Norristown at the time. And like, they were close, but not too close. And they weren't like too far, because as I started looking at the open adoption part, I was like, if I want to see them, I don't want to have to meet halfway in the middle of the country or them take a 5-hour drive or whatever the case may be. So I ended up with them, and there was just a lot of what I like to call angel signs with them. Their profile number was my birthday and my brother's birthday. They had a dog named Stella. I had a dog named Bella. So like there was just all these little things that were like, this is who you want. Like, I don't care about anything else. This is who you want.
And what type of open adoption did you guys agree upon? Like, what type of contact do you have? Do you have visits? Do you get updates?
So in the beginning, my contract originally stated, I think, 2 visits a year and then pictures every year around his birthday. We have come so far in our open adoption over the last 10 years that I'm probably seeing him 3 to 4 times a year. We have each other's numbers, so I'm getting first day of school pictures, I'm getting birthdays, I get FaceTimes for Christmas. So like they start off really limited, and they're like, this is the least we can say we're gonna do for you. But throughout the past 9 years, it's opened up to just so much more. Like we get together now for the holidays, and I call him for his birthday and he calls for mine. Like it just became very beautiful relationship. Like it's a really nice relationship.
How do you think it got to that point? Like, I know a lot of folks, whether it's birth parents or adoptive families, will ask, like, what can I do to get a good relationship? How do I make our adoption triad grow and get to a point where we really trust each other? Like, what do you think has helped you over the last 10 years?
I think just the time and the consistency, because in the beginning it was a lot of going through the adoption agency, like, oh, they want to send you pictures, so they're going to send it to the adoption agency, and then we're going to send them out to you. And then as like, we had our first couple of meetups, then it was like, hey, can you just have your direct email? And then it started really small. It was just an email, and they were emailing, oh, look what he did today, or happy birthday, here's a picture. Like it started off really small, but as we started meeting more and getting together more, it was just one of those natural feeling type of relationships. Like they're very open with him about being adopted. So like he knows I'm his birth mom and he wants to see his birth mom. And they've never like closed him out of like not being like, oh, you're adopted, no big deal. They talk to him about it. And I think that has opened up a lot of our communication and relationship.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and while adoption is definitely not all sunshine and rainbows, and there can be bumps in the road to get to the point that you're at, I have to say that like on the spectrum of open adoption, like exactly what you're describing is like the epitome of what we hope for. So right. I think initially there's this connection, you match, you got along with them, there were things about them that there was a connection to. Sounds like the agency was the intermediary at the beginning, but then naturally over time it grew into something more. And now you have direct contact. Now it's like you're an extension of their family. And
it is. And it's really crazy because I talk about like the angel numbers and just so many similarities. The more we've opened up and talked, the more that we realize there's so many ways in life that we are actually connected other than just my son or the adoption. I know their family, grew up with some of their family. So it was kind of like one of those like, okay, like this was meant to be kind of thing.
So the concept of you not knowing that you were pregnant, I know that's kind of a hot topic within the adoption community, especially with prospective adoptive families that are trying to better understand when and how pregnant women or birth mothers become connected to an agency. What would you say to folks who just flat out will say, I don't believe them? I don't think that it's possible to not know you're pregnant. What would you say to folks?
I would say it's very possible. Maybe do some research. I know there was even a TV show at one point called I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant. It happens. It's very common. And I've learned that the more that I've talked about it to people, the more that it's more common. People are like, oh, I know somebody who didn't know they were pregnant until like 7 months. And like, I'm like, I can go through and say I didn't have any morning sickness or night sickness. I didn't feel any pain. Like I said, I was working full time at Chuck E. Cheese. Like I'm doing birthday parties from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And like wasn't exhausted or wasn't, any of those, like, I didn't really have any symptoms of being pregnant. I didn't really gain weight, probably gained 5 pounds. Nothing noticeable for somebody to be like, are you pregnant? And make me question if I'm pregnant, because nothing about me changed. I was still getting my menstrual cycle. And I know with PCOS, it kind of like fluctuates, and some people don't get it at all. Some people get it too long. Like, it was just one of those, like, I've known that I've had it in the past, so why would I be pregnant now? But now in my life, because I have been, I guess, traumatized by the whole experience, the second I'm not getting a menstrual, I'm like, oh no, we're peeing on this stick, because we're not going through this again.
Well, I just appreciate your transparency, because some of that's very personal, but for you to kind of give the context, I think helps folks better understand your circumstances. And even what you're describing, we have other clients who, maybe are older than the age you were when you got pregnant, or, haven't been receiving their menstrual cycle every month and still didn't know that they were pregnant for other reasons. And it's important for us not to judge, but to really understand and respect whatever it is that somebody's going through to get to the point of facing an unplanned pregnancy and potentially choosing adoption.
Yeah. And like I said, it might have been different had I known a couple of months before and was bonding with the child. It would probably have been a lot harder for me to go on with the adoption process. But I think not knowing actually helped me with that adoption process, because there was emotional attachment. I don't want to sound like I didn't have feelings for him once he was here, but it was one of those, like, most pregnant people bond with their baby when they're pregnant. They rub the bellies, they go to the doctor's appointments, they see the baby, they feel the baby. I can tell you, I didn't even really feel him. We called him Possum for the first 3 days he was out, because he just hit. Like, there was no nothing. But it was just, I don't know, it was just a little bit, not knowing, I could say, was a little bit easier to go through with the adoption process.
Sure. Well, and it makes sense what you're describing. It helped you kind of process the plan you were choosing from what I'm hearing from you. And that makes complete sense. And everybody processes things differently. And some folks may say that it was easier to know ahead of time because that gave them time to process the plan. Some folks say exactly what you're describing. Not having as much time to sit around and think about it actually helped me in my decision making. So it really just depends on the person, your experience, what you're going through. And we just respect whatever choice you choose to make. Overall, 10 years later, after choosing adoption for a child that you did not know you were pregnant with until the day of, any advice you give others, whether it's expecting or birth parents, adoptive families, something you'd like the adoption community to know?
Well, with the birth parents, I would probably like to say, don't give up on trying to make your open adoption work for you. It's an adjustment, and yes, you have to consider everybody else, but over time, things will change and things will get better. As far as parents who are adopting, love the child. Like, we know that you're in the adoption agency because you want to love a child, and a lot of us, we love our children. I love him. Like, there are days where I'm like, I wonder what if, or it's Christmas, or my friends are having babies, but like, I know that I made the right choice and he is still being loved and cared for. And to be patient with birth parents. There's a lot of emotions on both sides, but I think for me being one, it was kind of like will I see him? When will I see him? I'm anxious to see him. I still now get anxiety before visits, even though it's been 10 years. Every visit's different, but like this past summer, we met up at the beach and I literally cried and was like, never have I imagined that I would be meeting with you guys up at the beach. Never would I have imagined.
Well, you certainly have a miraculous story. it sounds like it was definitely an overwhelming day in 2014 for you.
I think that whole year was overwhelming, to be honest.
But I'm just happy to know that you're in a good place and you're at peace with your decision. And 10 years later, you're still confident in the plan that you made for your child. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. To our audience members, we're always grateful to hear from birth parents, to be courageous enough to share your story and really just give a reality of what it's like to be facing an unplanned pregnancy and choosing adoption helps our adoption community grow. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you guys. You guys were a great help and were until we, started talking on our own. We went through you guys for everything. It was nice.
Good. Wonderful. Well, thank you again. Continue to tune in and we'll see you guys soon.